As I grow as a creator, I'm always going between phases. When I'm heavily in a photography phase, there's nothing more I like than a tiny 3D popping prime. Then there's that other phase that takes over times when shooting mostly video, when I'm looking to add layers to my content, showing the little things, showing the way to, or the overall atmosphere of the scene, wide and detailed. I'm not sure if you're like me, but I cannot stand firmly on whether or not I prefer primes or zooms. In my head, I consider myself mostly a prime guy. I just love the rendered image that you get with a lot of these small, tiny primes from companies like Voigtlander. I really do love having that one lens on your camera for everything, but damn it, I end up missing a lot of shots because of this, especially when shooting video. Shooting on the Nikon platform now for 9 months, I've seen so many people review this lens, which is why I was so excited to finally get to try it. Let's get into today whether or not I leave my primes at home now after owning this 24-120. Let's get into it. The overall feel of this 24-120 is really nice. I find that it's nicely weighted on Nikon Z6III. It's not too front heavy and balances really nicely in your hands. Weighing only 630 grams, it's not very heavy for the overall image quality that it produces. I find while this lens is quite large on a camera and will draw a lot of eyes to you, carrying it on something like a capture clip, doing things like hiking, I didn't find it to add too much strain to my backpack, which was really great. The zoom on this lens works really well. Having it locked in on a tripod or something like that would create some really nice zoom in shots. Another two things that are really nice about this are you have some extra buttons on the lens. You have the LFN button, which I have set to AEL, and then with this focused ring, I have it set to ISO, because I find that changing ISO on this camera is a little bit awkward. You have to like press two different things, and I really just miss having a single dial to change ISO. Let me know if you have any suggestions for better ways to set this up. This lens also does include an automatic and manual focus switch if you want to switch between both easily. While I do find this lens really easy to focus, being able to do so with just a single finger, I do find it quite difficult to stop at infinity without going past for my focus pulls. I think I need to just turn down the sensitivity and it will extend the range of the focus a little better, and maybe that will solve most of my issues, but that's just one thing to note. Okay, now going on to the aperture range. This has a range between f4 and 22, and I don't find this to be limiting like a lot of people online would make you believe, especially considering how you can remove noise now with almost any photo editing or video editing app on the market today. It's really not an issue cranking up your noise these days. Going into image quality now, I want to say that there's really nothing like it. The overall sharpness in the image is really outstanding, even at f4 up into some of the higher apertures. It really is an incredible lens for overall sharpness. Even comparing to, say, this Voigtlander 28 f2 Ultron, it really stacks up well against this lens. While I think the sharpness of this lens is really incredible, I do find it lacks, however, a little bit of personality that you would get with a prime. I've personally found the range between 24-120 to be exceptional for shooting things like architecture work. Maybe you do want a little bit more on the wider side, so I'd recommend purchasing something like a Laowa 14mm or a 12mm to really have your bases covered. There's really not much more than you need besides that, except for if you're wanting to shoot bird photography, which I've already been flamed for doing my bird tracking test with this 24-120. But I mean, what can I say? I'm not really a fan of extended telephoto lenses. I bought them before and I just never used them in a way that makes sense for me to spend easily over $1,000 on one. I find that the coatings on this lens did really quite well. You don't get excessive flares when using this. With photo, I think this is a good thing. With video, I find that maybe it lacks a little bit of personality for that sense, but we'll get into that in a little bit. I find that the bokeh when shooting photo, there's no hard edges in it, and it really is quite smooth. There were some times where I've shot images and I've just been really impressed with it. When going over the minimum focus of this lens now, it's really great. It goes down to 0.35, allowing you to shoot almost macro-like photography out of this lens. Compared to my Canon 24-105, it beats it by 0.10 meters, so you're able to get a little bit closer, and that works really well for shooting things like flower photography, shooting product photography, getting animals nice and up close, just really nice detailed images. This is one that does it all, and I think I'll be using this lens a lot for my Facebook Marketplace listings. One thing a lot of people don't usually mention in regards to the sharpness of a lens, it oftentimes makes a bigger difference than having a higher megapixel camera in terms of overall resolution of your images. I think a lot of people undervalue the importance of sharp glass in regards to overall resolution of an image and rely more on the camera's megapixels. However, with this Z6III shooting at only 24.5 megapixels, it feels like I've gained an extra 20 just by how sharp this lens is. I really think there's no issue at all cropping quite heavily with a lens like this, even on a lower megapixel camera like the Z6III. While sharpness is great, it's not everything. A lot of people like to have a softer image when shooting their photos or videos with things like portraits. And obviously the vintage film aesthetic is a thing these days. However, there's a lot of things you can do to remedy that. Things like softening filters, you're able to purchase as well low contrast filters, and post-processing things like the enhancer. Promo code in the description. Please buy that through my affiliate link if you'd like and support the channel. But there's lots of ways to degrade your footage to soften it. So I think it's better to have a sharp image than a soft one out of camera. And you just have a little bit more to work with in that sense. Moving on to video now, I think this is one of the best lenses someone could buy for having something like a YouTube channel. You really don't need anything beyond this. And if you do any sort of traveling, forget about it. Like, buy it now. It's a little bit heavy, but I think the weight trade-off is worth it, and you're not having to swap lenses all the time in the field. This is the perfect run-gun setup. When editing the files in DaVinci Resolve, I find that there's a lot of room to work within. The colors aren't overly saturated and provide a nice, pleasing look. Although I do think it lacks a little bit of character, I still think that it has enough that it makes it worth keeping in your bag. Most of the sample clips I shot were in NRAW at 30p or 60p, depending on whether or not I wanted to slow the shot down in post. Closing things up now, I want to go into who I think this lens is for. I think this lens is for someone who wants the one that does it all with next to no trade-offs. I think almost anyone actually would benefit from having this lens as a backup or be their main lens. You can shoot architecture work, you can shoot portrait photography, you can shoot insect photography, videography. Having this on a hike is just an absolute dream with its weather resistance and overall functionality. It's so sharp in the corners and you can soften it if you'd like with many different things, as I mentioned in the video. There's no reason really not to get this unless you're looking for a lens with a certain amount of character, and I think this does lack a little bit of character, although it does what it does really well. The bokeh is nice and exceptional. It's nice and soft, no hard edges, as I mentioned, which is kind of rare for a lens in this zoom range. When looking at the minimum aperture range, don't be afraid of f4. You can really shoot a ton of content with that, just with the way that you're able to reduce noise in post-processing now. Do not be afraid to crank your ISO if needed. A lot of people like the look of a higher ISO image anyways to sort of soften things a little bit, and I really do not think there is any reason not to pick this up based on it being minimum f4. Let me know your thoughts on this 24-120 Z lens. I've enjoyed my time shooting with it, and I will be shooting a lot more content in the future with this lens. All in all, I think this is the best performance a lens has ever shown me in terms of optical quality. Nikon really stepped things up with their Nikon Z platform, and this is something I didn't necessarily see in this 40mm f2 lens. This lens had character, but optically wasn't superb like this one is. Well, I don't think there's much more I can say about this lens. Let me know in the comments your thoughts on it. Is it truly one of the best lenses of all time? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Bye.